Well, thanks so much, everyone, for coming tonight on this balmy evening. We really appreciate it. We're going to be quick. We're not going to take too much of your time. We want to let you get back to your evening. I'm Emily Convert. I'm sure most of you know me. I know most of you. And we really wanted to have this rally tonight because we've been getting so much feedback from so many people that there are a lot of misconceptions and a lot of propaganda and a lot of lies being spread and a lot of fear-mongering going on in our community right now. And we thought it would be a really good opportunity to gather people together and dispel some of the myths and give you some updates on the really important, crucial matters facing Monroe and the region right now. So I thought, since we started out with the movie theater, and United Monroe basically grew out of the opposition to the town's purchase, that would be a good place to start. So, as many of you know, the movie theater is still operating, thanks to Supervisor Harley Doles. It's being badly managed, and thanks to United Monroe Executive Committee member Mike Egan, we now know precisely how much money is being lost. Mike has been diligently on top of this issue for months and months and months, and went into Comptroller Peter Martin's office and basically said, let's sit down and hash this out. I want to see all the numbers. And what Mike found out is that this theater is losing around $1 million a year. Is that correct? Okay, I exaggerated. About $700,000 to $800,000 a year, which is still a heck of a lot of your tax dollars going down the drain. Mike McGinn and Tony Cardone, thankfully, when they became elected, thanks to most of you and the United Monroe line, and thanks to some members of Curious Joel and the Alliance, they were elected and immediately hired an auditing firm to audit all of the finances in the town of Monroe. And as part of this audit, the theater will be addressed. Mike and Tony, in the interest of wanting to dot all their I's and cross their T's, would like to wait until the audit comes in so that they have a fully valid reason to make a big decision on what to do about the movie theater going forward. We expect that the results of that audit to come in very soon, probably within the next few weeks. It is my personal hope that Mike and Tony will choose, along with Rick Colon, will choose to either lease the space to an actual theater operator, getting it back on the tax rolls, or will sell the building to a movie theater operator, so that we will no longer be subsidizing other people from anywhere in the county or the state to see movies, which I think is really irresponsible fiscally. That's my hope. In addition to that, Mike and Tony also eliminated 13 public safety positions that were extraneous in the movie theater. As many of you know, there was a very beefed up public safety department during Harley Doles and Jerry McQuaid and Dan Burke's reign on the board. They really they went a little nuts, overhiring staff. And most of these staff members were in the movie theater, standing around doing nothing. And Mike McGinn did a full audit of that department, being that he has a law enforcement background, and determined that these positions were really extraneous. And they made the decision to eliminate 13 positions, which really is saving us a lot of money. So that was good news. I wanted to go right into the rumors. What I've been hearing, what's been coming back to me, people in the supermarket, people inboxing me, calling me, texting me, saying, people are saying that United Monroe cut deals with the Alliance. That's why the accessory apartment hasn't been repealed yet, or they cut deals for those votes from the alliance. Well, I really want to set this record straight. The alliance are the dissident faction in Curious-Joel. They voted for Mike and Tony for the sole reason that they said, we're going to do what's fair and right, period. They said nothing more than that, and nothing more was asked. When Mike and Tony came into office, they began discussing the idea of having a moratorium, a 90-day moratorium on all residential construction in the town of Monroe. Once that discussion began, the alliance leadership, several of them, were not pleased with that at all. In fact, they thought that politically would make it look as though the people of Monroe are saying, we don't want you here, and that it would be a tough sell to get alliance members to vote for United Monroe in the future. Mike and Tony knew, regardless of the political ramifications of this decision, that it was still the right thing to do. They're not concerned with their next election. They're concerned with righting the wrongs in the town. They're men of integrity. They're not politicians. And they went ahead and promoted the moratorium, which will be 90 days. And in the meantime, they hired an excellent planning firm. Bonnie Franson is the planner. They got rid of the old planner who was not efficient, not effective, and was working with Councilman McQuaid. And they now have a new planner who is working on the comprehensive plan revision. And that includes upgrading the codes in Monroe, the zoning in Monroe, and the accessory apartment code. A lot of you have heard a lot about the accessory apartment code. Here's the reality. As it stands now, anyone could build an accessory apartment that is almost as big as the house that they live in. It could be 1 square foot smaller, and they could build that on their property, which really amounts to a 2-family house. If your accessory apartment's as big as your house, that's a 2-family. That's not an accessory apartment. And that's how the code has existed for years. I think there have been about 5 cases where this code has been utilized over the years. Not a lot of occasions where this code has been used. However, we're looking down the barrel of the distinct possibility that this code could be very abused in the future. So none of us want that to happen. However, when you're going to rescind a code or change a code, you have to change the law. And to change a law, you have to have a public hearing. Well, when the 90-day moratorium is up, and when the comprehensive plan is completed and Bonnie Franson submits her recommendations to the board, that is when we will have a public hearing in the town of Monroe. And everyone can read her revisions, everyone can read the code, everyone can read the zoning changes, and everyone can determine, I like this part, I don't like this part, this is good, maybe we could fix this, and they can share their opinions at the town board, to the town board, at that public hearing, and that includes the accessory apartment. Once that's hashed out and the board hears all of our opinions and input, they will then make a determination on whether to adopt the new comprehensive plan as it exists, as presented by Bonnie Franson, or to make changes and tweaks as the public wishes. Once they do that, they vote on adopting that plan. The law changes. At that point, the accessory apartment code can be either removed completely or dramatically revised, such as, the accessory apartment can be 10% or 15% the size of the actual dwelling. That is yet to be seen, what the planner is going to recommend, what the public wants, and everyone will have their say. But if any of you have been to the town board meetings, and I know many of you have here, you have noticed that at every town board meeting, Supervisor Doles has put rescind the accessory apartment code today. Do it today, do it today. And he keeps asking for it at every meeting. The reality is he can't do that. That's not how that's not how the town board works. That's not how the law works. There's a process by which you change codes and laws in a municipality. And he's doing that as a manipulation. He's doing that so he can point a finger at Mike and Tony at every meeting and say, I demand that you withdraw this code today. They can't do that. And he's making a scene to insinuate that Mike and Tony are trying not to do that because they're somehow bought by the alliance. And this is the manipulation that we're seeing, and this is what I wanted to dispel to everyone and explain it as clearly as I could, and I hope I did. But that's what we're seeing in the town board meetings, and that's what Supervisor Doles is trying to do. So don't fall into any of these traps, please. Don't believe what you're hearing. And if you hear anybody else saying anything like this, now you have a more fleshed out explanation to give to people that you meet and talk to. In addition to that, it's important to mention that Supervisor Doles abstained from the vote to even have a moratorium in the first place. When the vote came up, he's been talking about we need a moratorium, then the vote comes and he says, I abstain. So, you know, Mike and Tony are extremely invested in this community. They've raised their kids here. They're both successful business owners. They're successful in their personal and professional lives. And you know, on the other hand, Supervisor Doles, we don't even know where he came from. He moved here with no record of any previous work experience. He went into foreclosure the first year he bought his home. I mean, this is not a functioning individual yet. And if any of you have seen the recent town board meetings, you've seen the insults that he he lashes out at Councilman Cardone and Councilman McGinn regularly. It's astounding. It's astounding. And the public is rightfully angry. The public is rightfully upset and horrified. And occasionally the public will shout or get upset or have an emotional reaction in a meeting. And unfortunately, in my view, the media has done kind of a crappy job of just showing the emotional people in the audience, or kind of painting our organization as hot-headed or extreme. And what I say to that is there's nothing extreme about being outraged by corrupt government. There's nothing extreme about responding to lies and injustice with frustration and activism. There's nothing extreme about any of those things. And so my plea, I guess, to you is if you see people in the supermarket saying, oh, that United Monroe, oh, they sound crazy, or I see the screaming at those meetings, or I don't want to get involved in that, explain to them the extremity of the situation we're dealing with in this community and why it's so important that we have all stood up and we have all done what we've done these past few years, and that we have shown emotion and we have stood up to the corruption. I will give you a quick annexation lawsuit update. There's nothing really to tell you except that we're waiting on the judge. We have an excellent legal case, and we're just waiting for the judge to render her decision. And we know nothing more right now about it, except that we feel very good about our legal case right now. The developments in the community. Many of you know there are a huge number of developments being pushed through. They're at various stages in the planning process in the town of Monroe, in both the village and the town. To name them, we all know Smith Farm on Gilbert Street. It's a massive development. It's going to be 170-something, 180-something units. We've all heard and seen the flooding and the problems over there with the early stages of construction and clear cutting of that hillside. That property is owned by essentially KJ Tycoon, I like to call him Ziggy Brock. And we already suspect that that development will be marketed to one population. We have reason to believe that may happen. If that does happen, I think that we should all once again be very active in the opposition of that discriminatory housing practice, if that should happen, and not allow it to happen. Because that's illegal. You can't market an entire development to one group. And I think we should all be very vigilant in ensuring that that doesn't happen. Shea Meadow, yeah, I'm sure you've heard a lot about Shea Meadow and the Rye Hill Corridor, as they like to call it. That is the development on Rye Hill Road. It's next to Prestwick, and that will be close to 50 homes, single-family homes back there. I'm sure a lot of you have seen those trees have come down as well off of Rye Hill, and that is slated to be a 50-home single-family development. In addition to that, we've got Bridges of Lake Park. That is, very few people know about that development. It's right behind, if you go down Lake Street here, it's right behind the Roscoe Smith house. There's a hillside with a forest. That's slated to be 43 village-style homes. So that whole hillside will be houses as well. In addition to that, we've got Bald Hill, which is going to be mostly multifamily dwellings, I believe, townhomes or condos, and Bald Hill is behind Smith Clove Park. On the other side of the hill of the Smith Clove Park mountain, and that we can be very, very certain is going to be heavily marketed to Curious Joel citizens because of the proximity to Curious Joel. In addition to that, I think the last one I have on my list here is, what is it, Henry Farm? Henry Farm. And Henry Farm is close to Chester. And that's probably the development out of all of the developments I just mentioned that's in the earliest stages. It hasn't gotten very far yet. But all of these developments right now, minus Bridges of Lake Park, are on hold because of the moratorium. And I just want to say that during my stint as a alternate on the village planning board, I learned quickly that for far too long, developers have made decisions about our community. It's been in the hands of the developers to decide what our towns and villages look like. And, you know, I feel like the horse is out of the barn already on that, because there's very little developable land left in Monroe anyway, so most of it's pretty much accounted for and going to be developed at this point. But I do think it's not too late for us to get very involved in the planning process, show our opposition to what we can going forward, because these developments haven't been built yet. They are still in the planning stages. And I think that if we step in and we demand fuller or more fleshed out environmental review processes, or we can brainstorm and come up with ways to alter some plans to make them more desirable, or insist on stricter tree codes so that things aren't clear-cut for future developments, or just improve our quality of life. Everyone's involvement is so important, and if anyone has any interest in getting involved in the local boards, I think it could be really helpful, because I think there's a lot of people in existing boards that maybe shouldn't be there anymore, and that it's time for some new ideas, some new vision, and new thoughts.
Hey Jerry, how you doing? You want to come join us?
You know, people use Warwick as an example a lot. They talk about, you know, Warwick, you know, is so beautiful, and you know, it really is a good example because it's similar in population, it's similar in size, and they've really done such an amazing job at preserving the natural beauty of their landscape and their rural character, and their downtown is so stunning. I really do think we should be really fully examining that town and village and taking a page out of their book going forward. Blooming Grove, we've got some blockbusting going on, as I'm sure you've heard. A lot of doors are being knocked on in South Blooming Grove, and thankfully the government of South Blooming Grove, the village and the town, they really jumped to try to fix the problem immediately. They enacted some laws, and they reported the incidences of blockbusting. And if you don't know what blockbusting is, it's knocking on doors and intimidating homeowners into thinking that they should get out now while they can, because if they don't, this other population's going to take over, and you're not going to want to live here with this new population here. That's the general definition of blockbusting. And that was happening, and the village government stepped in. They enacted some laws, and they now have a registry in South Blooming Grove. You can register your house on a do not knock list, so no one can bother you. And if they do, they can be prosecuted or fined. And the problem with this is that a lot of the people in South Blooming Grove are not adding their names to the list. And the reason why they're not adding their names to the list is in some developments, people actually want people to knock on their doors with a bag of cash because they're being offered above market value for these homes, and they're getting out. A lot of people are moving in South Blooming Grove. And the problem is that people are still taking pictures of cars with Hasidic people in them and following them around the neighborhood. And it's becoming a very volatile situation. And I just want to say that if you don't have your house on the do not knock list, and people are coming around and knocking, they have every right to be on your street doing that. And you can't be demonizing people for being in your neighborhood because they look a certain way. And we have to be very careful not to jump on that bandwagon. I think a lot of people get angry and frustrated, and I don't think anybody's more angry and frustrated than I am on a regular basis, trust me, about the injustices. But I think that when we see on social media people spouting off their anger and blowing off steam in ways that's not actually productive or helpful, it really hurts our cause. It hurts us in litigation. These statements and these comments wind up in legal documents proving anti-Semitism, which is obviously the favorite argument of the KJ leaders. And I'm imploring any of you who are on social media, inbox people who do this. Tell them to stop, tell them why, because it really hurts the cause. And just as we don't want KJ developers discriminating against us in their construction projects, we can't be discriminating against families that are legitimately looking at homes. There have been incidences in South Blooming Grove where Hasidic families were with a realtor looking at a house that was for sale, and someone started screaming and cursing at them, "We don't want your kind here." And that's a documented story that actually happened. And this is the kind of thing we can't let happen. Demographics is destiny. We can't deny that this population in Kiryas Joel is growing faster than the population outside of Kiryas Joel. That's a reality. However, we can still maintain the rural character and community and quality of life if we are all engaged and involved and watch the planning projects coming down the pike, get involved in coming to some meetings, going to planning board meetings, joining a planning board or a zoning board, and staying united. It's so important that we stay united. Bottom line, we are a grassroots, all volunteer organization made up of people from all political affiliations. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to tell this story, but I think I might want to tell it. I've been debating all day whether or not to share this one because it was tough and it was troubling for me. I received a call today from someone who told me that a known KJ attorney, his name is Ron Kossar, was at a Village of Monroe Planning Board meeting recently, and he spoke to the planning board of the Village of Monroe, and he was attacking United Monroe in a public space, in the public room. And the chairman and secretary of the planning board were nodding in agreement with him. And
Don't like that, babe.
no, it's not good. And they made a statement to the effect that I agree. They really lost their purpose, they said. And to that I say, we're preventing a sham of a government in Curious Jewel from stealing land from Monroe. We have elected Mike and Tony to the town board. We marched in the hundreds to the annexation vote in KJ, making multiple local and regional news networks. We've gotten more people to vote in Monroe than ever before. We're holding local, county, and state leaders accountable for their decisions, and our electorate is more engaged than ever before. So, no, Planning Board Chairman, we have not lost our purpose. And shame on you for agreeing with a KJ shill attorney in the public venue. That agreement will cost us. That attorney will go back to the KJPE and share that there's a chink in the armor in Monroe. And we cannot allow that to happen. We must hang together or we will hang separately. And I know that's a quote and it's been said before, but it's really true. We must hold people in appointed positions, in elected positions, in positions of authority accountable. And we must move on from here with vision, strong leadership, honesty, integrity, and accountability. And those have been our mission statements since day one, and it holds true today. So, despite how you feel about the prospect of Legoland in Goshen, and this relates to what I was just saying. It seems like a non sequitur, but it's not. Whether you're for it or against it, we can't allow ourselves to make decisions from a position of fear. We must make our decisions from a position of strength, and by that, I mean we need to think critically. We must have the facts. I didn't agree with our county executive, Newhouse, when he threatened the people of Orange County that if not Legoland, then high-density housing will appear. That is fear-mongering. That is scare tactics, and that's not good governance. That's not how you speak to the public. Again, regardless of your feelings about it, remember to get your facts first. And lastly, we have elections coming up. In September, there will be a Republican primary. John Allegro is our candidate in the 98th Assembly District. We need a record turnout at the primary and general elections this year for John. John has worked alongside me for the last several years and has been a tireless and relentless fighter for the cause. John has been a tremendous source of insight and understanding for the public in both his public speaking and his writing. John is a researcher, always looking up New York State law and legal precedent. John is going to be an excellent assemblyman. He has a great mind and a big heart and is a man of conscience. Without reservation, I ask you to support John in the coming months as he gears up for what will surely be a difficult race for the 98th Assembly seat. And thank you again for your continued support. Let's hear it for John.
Thank you. I've been researching law. Let's see if we can rewrite some laws in the next couple of years. Thank you all for being here. It's another great turnout on short notice, and without all of you showing up for all these years, we wouldn't be where we are today. And over the last few weeks, I've been meeting a lot of people in our community and other communities, and we've talked about issues that confront us all, like local economies, the business climate, traffic, our resources, and of course preservation of our rich rural and really farming and suburban heritage. When I speak with people about our fight against Curious Joel annexation, there's one thing that I'm hearing. Louder. There's one thing that I'm hearing a lot less, and that is people saying to me, "Boy, you guys really have a big issue to confront there in Monroe." And I think it's testament to what we've all done, that people no longer know that this is not just a Monroe issue. This is a countywide and a regional issue. I have a list here. I probably could have written a 5-page list. They know that the intimidation and threats of a few government leaders and LLC cult developers, the KJPE, Curious Joe Power Elite, are not limited to crooked elections and illegal annexations in Monroe. They know in Woodbury, where the KJPE sued the village of Woodbury to try to take control of their zoning, and Woodbury won that case on appeal. They know in Blooming Grove, where the KJPE sued over water and sewer that may have gone to a casino. They know in Chester, where the KJPE are demanding involved agency status on the new plans for Camp LaGuardia, which is going to be a commercial business park. They know in the Washingtonville and Monroe Woodbury school districts, where they are threatened by the KJPE about takeovers that are imminent to our school districts. And they know in Goshen, where the KJPE are foiling records and communications over the proposed Legoland project. I sense a sense of entitlement here. They also know in Albany, where the governor received $250,000 in contributions after he vetoed an annexation oversight bill last year. And they know in Albany, where our current assemblyman played both sides of the fence, belatedly posturing against annexation while he voted no on oversight and funding for the troubled East Ramapo School District. He voted no. And that was really one of the reasons that I decided to run. I got tired of answering for the guy who's in office now. And when he voted no on oversight in East Ramapo, when he voted no to protect our children's education, people were asking me, why did Carl do that? And I spoke with Carl, and I said, Carl, people are asking me, why did you vote no on oversight in East Ramapo? And he said, well, John, it's really just too much big government.
What?
Yeah, too much big government. We don't need the government interfering in local matters. I understand that the man's a Republican. I understand I'm running for the Republican nomination. But at what point do you say, I'm going to trash the education of children because oversight and making sure that local entities and school boards do the right thing is big government and it's not the right thing to do? Doesn't work. Doesn't work here, and it doesn't work with our friends in East Ramapo. This is not just saber rattling and bravado by Gedalia Segedin and the KJPE. These are real threats. These are existential threats to our homes, our schools, our economy, and the rural character of our communities. This is real. And if it weren't for all of us and all of you standing up and finally saying no, this small group of developers and government officials in KJ, the KJPE, would have 507 acres more land to overdevelop right now. So thank you all. So I guess, as many of you know, I'm running. I'm running for New York State Assembly in Monroe, Tuxedo, Warwick, Minnesink, Greenville, Deer Park, Port Jervis, and parts of Ramapo. As for the incumbent, who I spoke about, he's done too little too late on annexation, and he voted on a strong East Ramapo oversight bill. Another opponent lives here in Monroe. She moved into Monroe 4 years ago, and she's already on her second attempt at running for office. And I think we all know about people who move into Monroe and run for office shortly thereafter. There's one guy who's the supervisor of our town right now, and we can't wait to be rid of him. Another opponent is Aaron Weeder of Rockland County.
Oh yeah, that's what I have.
Aaron Weeder is the architect of the dismantling of the East Ramapo School District. And he's trying for a third time for this seat. There's one thing I can tell you, all three of these people have in common. They want to step on our backs to foster their desires and accomplish their desires to attain higher office. And again, it's time for us to say no to that. The establishment has not done the work of the people. Everyone here has done phenomenal work, holding our elected officials' feet to the fire. We've made some very loud noise on the local and county levels, but I think Albany hasn't heard us loudly enough. So when I'm sworn in as your assemblyman in January, I promise that the political fence straddling will stop. I'll bring the same passion that I bring now as an activist, a community activist, to the halls of the State House in Albany. I'll bring that same passion to you, for you. And I won't ever waver on what is right for everyone who lives in this region. Everyone. Yeah. I'll begin right away by working to strengthen our secret laws. Environmental reviews on large-scale projects should not be done on a handshake between municipalities. We need real accountability for those who have in the past rubber-stamped annexations and irresponsible development, both of which can negatively impact our property values. And Emily spoke about those hundreds of homes that have been rubber-stamped here in the village and town of Monroe. This is a clear attempt to dilute our home values. And no village or town government that allows serial violations of our environmental laws should receive one dime of state funding for any projects that may affect our land, air, or water. I also promise to support full veto power for the East Ramapo school monitors. They just passed a one-year bill that was weak. It was for funding only, for a very small amount of funding. It's going to expire in 1 year. When it's back on the table, I'm going to insist that full veto power is written in. I'm also going to take on any threats by the KJPE toward any of our school districts. Any threat of takeovers must not be used to further their desire for manifest destiny. As a guy in the audience here, Dan Pastricone, who ran 2 years ago. And he ran, I want to talk about the primary for a minute. Yeah. There were more non-Brabenec votes in the Republican primary 2 years ago than there were Brabenec votes. And had Carl Brabenec not received the Anash main faction vote in the Republican primary 2 years ago, I wouldn't be running and that guy would be there today. And we'd be re-electing him. In the general election, Dan and United Monroe got over 9,000 votes. 9,000. I say we take those 9,000 and the 12,000 that the other guy got and send everybody home in November. And if we all can do that, I promise I won't let you down. Thank you very much.